G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach Swordplay and welcome to the Round 5 Supercoach Stock Market video. I hope that you're all well. Another big episode this week. If you haven't already caught it, I did put a video out a few hours ago outlining all of the Supercoach stock market symbols. So in the notes section, you will see a range of different icons and pictures, and I've gone through what each and every one of those means. So if you are a little bit confused from time to time, make sure you check that video out. You can always go back to that as a good reference point. Thank you to everyone that has donated as well. I've got some individual player slides coming up next week for those that have, so I appreciate you guys. But getting to the video, we have a huge episode. Now, we've got some big decisions on our hands. The man right at the top of the list, I'm going to say it right now, Rolly Bice, is a must-have this week. You've got to find a way to bring this bloke into your side. He's killing it at the moment. Underneath him, we've got Clay Hall, a really popular rookie target for us this week. Right in the middle, Big Kizza, coming down in price. And is it time to pounce? If you're a Flynn owner, for example, at R2, we'll talk about that. The next man, I'm an owner, Finn Callahan, underperforming, potential tag this week. I'm scared. Is it time to say goodbye, invest somewhere else? And right down the bottom, we see one of our uber defensive premiums in Sam Flanders with a crazy break even over 200 this week. So some big decisions, lots of other players to talk about. You can see that I've got the Swordplay rugby polo shirt on. It is absolutely elite, fits well, great comfort, and you can now order that online at supercoachswordplay.com if you like. Check out the podcast. We've already put that out. We're doing a heap of lives, plenty of content to come, but you are here for the stock market video. So let's get right into this. You know where we start, the 500k plus defenders. Let's go. At the top of the list this week, we have Dan Rolly. Banged down a massive 163 on the weekend, and he only needed 26 touches to do so. Before that, a couple of low 90s, so the floor seems decent. The ceiling is obviously high. If you're purchasing him as a keeper, so if you think you can get to that top 8 to 10 range, then go for it, but I just don't have that confidence myself. Harry Himmelberg, he was here as a nice pod last week, and did he deliver again? It's time to possibly pay more attention here, but the time to buy was really last week. If you can keep it up, that's that 3-rounder average, then there is meat on the bone for sure. With Nazaya, seems like a safe as houses pick. Tier 2 player for mine. A lovely 123 on the weekend, following up scores of 96, 113 and 110. That is why the safe as houses symbol is there. You can pretty much lock in a score between 95 to 110 each week, but an extra bonus from time to time is there as well. The next two blokes are really the ones you want having sitting there at D1 and D2. Sinclair is on fire, dominating the Supercoach score sheet. A 3-rounder of 140 plus says it all really, but for a trade-in, he's ideal as a player, but my only gripe is the price that you're paying. We've seen spending 640k on a player before can really hurt you. All they need is just the one down game. He'll be more affordable at some stage without a doubt. And even though I don't see him slowing up too much soon, his current 3-rounder is impossible to maintain, and you could look to jump on when those monsters are out of the system. But if you got the cash, you are locking in a top-line defender for the season. Whitfield, I like more of a trading option this week, mainly due to the difference in price. Yeah, it's either way, you are getting a fantastic player, but saving 32k is probably what sends this over the line for me. Looking at his stats, has not had under 19 kicks a game all season. 2 lots of 19 and 2 lots of 25. Absolutely insane. 111, 128, 109 and 140 is absolutely sublime. Faces the Saints this week, which means another ceiling score could be on the cards. And don't forget his post-buy average from last year. Here are his scores post-buy 2024 very quickly. 108, 134, 105, 117, 107, 113, 137, 133, 152 in a mad 3-week run. 97, which was his floor score, and then ended with a 106 and a 153. So many runs on the board. He's continued on his merry way this season. One of the most dangerous players with ball in hand in the comp, and a terrible anti-pod. So, personally, I'm getting him in this week. I'm hoping that DR's trade curse does not continue, and apologies in advance if I do break this great man. The Shees, he burnt those that traded him last week after losing the faith. Back to his old self, 34 touches at 82%, along with 9 marks and a few tackles. He was everywhere. and all of a sudden his owners can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. Looks to be top 6, and great to see that arrow turn from red to green. Luke Ryan also bounced back with a 134, 23 kicks, which was a season high by 4, and now comes up against the Tigers and the Ds. I need to see more, as his 3 scores before this read 66, 95 and 81, but as you can see from the symbol, he's gone from bad to good in the last week. You'd be very happy if you're one of his few owners. And Maxi Holmes has had 2 great games, one that you can stomach, and then a downer last week. 125, 91, 127, and then that tag game, 72 last week. Unfortunately, he looks to be that number 1 tag target in Geelong's midfield for now, so that's probably enough for me to stay away. Jordan Clark is another tier 2, just tracking along well. Should be a safe 105 to 110 average, which is fine. A rock solid selection in my opinion, and could feast against the Tigers this week. Dale bounced back from form after an ordinary performance the week before. His kick count and efficiency were back up to the required standard, and has St Kilda in 2 weeks, which is fantastic for owners. I'll give you a bit of context. Last time he played the Saints, he scored a whopping 175, 39 touches, 29 of those being kicks, 15 marks and a goal. All this came after he was a sub the week before, so did he get right back into action? If you can get anything close to that, I reckon I'll be doing a few laps around the kitchen, maybe banging on a few walls as well. Nick Martin has not been setting the world on fire, but some future DPP could be incoming to potentially increase his relevance. The Zorks had a down game of the weekend, but was super frustrating considering he had that easy matchup, and I had him as my captain, so of course he was going low. In saying that, still a fantastic floor, looks like a really safe top 3 to 6 defender. Houston had yet another brain fade. Oh man, a 2-week ban. You'd think he would have learned his lesson, but obviously not. Had a huge first quarter, 45 Supercoach points, but slowed in the second just before the incident. Only added 16 points to his quarter time score. And, well, after that, he got to a 106, but it's so unlucky for owners. It may be, from now on with Dan Houston, a matter of the NDHP policy, because geez, this was a Muppet-type incident. With other carnage to deal with, this just adds a cherry on top for those that own him. And Sam Flanders has a massive break-even, 229 if you don't mind. So simply one to watch and monitor. Jump on if he comes back to form. He will be an absolute fallen premium. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Oh, man. Connor O'Sullivan, Cos has been such a big miss. I can't understate it. I'm not going to bother with the stats because I think the ship has pretty much sailed. We have to accept the fact that we've missed out. I'd be going biased if you don't own him this week, but if you think his 3-rounder of 89 can continue for the next little while, then you could actually jump on if you're ultra keen. Job security looks as solid as ever now, particularly with Henry going down as well. He'll be over 300k this week, and in doing so, reaches that magic 150k profit mark already. This is a dagger to the chest for non-owners. Josh Sin had a down game of the weekend after looking okay the week before. A hold if you own, but no way as an investment. I'm a little bit worried with this pick. Bergman as a DPP pod option could be going under the radar a little bit. A really talented player who's looked really good in the last 2 weeks after a slowish start. The scoring pattern is going up with the 76, 77, 92 and the 116 last week. But there's no real point for me because he isn't a keeper and won't make enough cash as a stepping stone. Lockie Ash, another pod selection with a 3-rounder in triple figures. 122, 80, 95 and 130 is okay. But I've got Whitfield and Harry Himmelberg ahead at this stage. SDK, a train wreck of a selection at the moment, and with Stanley back in the team, well, it's an absolute sell for me. I've got the chopping symbol on him there, but I think that may be a little bit generous. And as I said, it's a train wreck. I could have easily had the train wreck symbol there. Look, what do? I think you got to get rid of him after that 109. It's been downhill, 74.50, 92. It's okay, I suppose, but no good for Sam. It's just a very tough own. Harry Perryman, well, he slapped owners in the face, didn't he, when he started lining up in those CBAs? Put on a 50-point first half, went bug you sellers, scored a 101, so another 50 in the second. I'm still not convinced he's absolutely back. Let's see after this week. Shorty, another mediocre score, 86, close to his season average. That's pretty much what you expect, so a bit of a nothing pick at the moment. Ideally, you want to get him up to one of those big 3 or 4. Matty Roberts, bit of an interesting discussion point this week. Had a down week after a very consistent start to the season. People are jumping off already, but I say give him at least another week for sure. Bicey could be stealing points, so it's something to watch. We already have the Lizard getting points to add to his pie down back as well. So I think if it's his floor game, then I can carry that at least up until the buys and hope that he gets back to that 100 average. But I must admit, he was lucky he kicked a goal because that helped to boost him to just a 77. But I've got the faith in Matty Roberts for now anyway. And down the bottom, Stewie had a great game with 115 plus, back to his usual self, and that gives us confidence. But we wait another week for that price to get closer to the 450k range, and then we look to pounce a week after. I say keep him in your upgrade plans for sure, as he is the definition of a fallen primo. You can see the binoculars there and the target symbol. Next week, I'm all over this pick. On to the defenders under 250k, and we'll race through this one as it's a pretty simple slide to navigate. Bice baby, Bice is life, the Bisonator, the big boss, and however you refer to this man at the top of the list, the rice is cooked to absolute perfection. All I will say is this: if you don't own him, he is your priority trade in this week. It's frustrating that you've missed that score and the initial price rise, but there is plenty of meat on the bone, and a perfect D5 to D6 option is Riley Bice. Get him in now. He's an absolute must-have. Trainer we hold along with Reed and Pryor. Great turnaround in form and making money, as we can see from the symbol. Leak is an O because he simply can't get back into the team. And O'Connell was out last week with concussion, and not sure if Stocker played well enough to keep him out or not. A bit of a failed rookie for now with the red break even, but hopefully he's fit and healthy. And the bubble boy this week is Toby Travaglia. A solid game from the young man in round 3 versus the Tigers, and then an okayish 52 last week. The concern here was only the 9 touches and a goal. We know he was a popular preseason selection before he didn't get named to start the season. You would think they'd want to give him as much of an opportunity as possible. We know his junior talent, given he was a first round pick, but at the inflated price, I don't think he's one of those must-have rookies. But if you've already got your bias and you need to downgrade down back, then he's certainly an option. On to the midfielders, 500k plus, and there are a few interesting names on this list, and we've welcomed 2 young superstars to the 500k plus range this week in Normie Ashcroft and Jakey Sligo. Ashy has been on fire, and maybe I was trying to take the bias out of it too much when I passed on him. He starts on the bench and then usually goes forward before getting his stint in the midfield. Scores of 73, 104, 136 and 130 is fantastic. He's doing everything, regularly hitting the scoreboard, which has also helped to increase his ceiling. Received 9 free kicks as a little bit of a bonus as well. So not sure if that's sustainable, but shows he's getting to the ball first on most occasions. The best thing about Will is that he doesn't get tagged. He can just run free. Got a nice fixture over the next month. And the way he's going has an outside chance of becoming a keeper. I wouldn't be planning for that, but you could certainly look to hold it up until the buy. Still value there, but I wouldn't be purchasing as a stepping stone. You're certainly buying to hold. Clugger, none of one of my boys, is on an absolute tear, and my son Maxie is loving it. His favourite player in the comp. I'm actually captained him last week in his Supercoach side. Got to see him live on the weekend. Like Ashy, doesn't receive attention, although he has at times in the past. 80 to start off the season wasn't great, but then he's really taken advantage of the Lions' nice early fixture. 132, 136 and 156 last week. And in another similar stat to Ashy, he loves getting a free kick, 12 in total, which is an average of 3 a game. He doesn't need a heap of the footy to score well either. In the last 3 weeks, he has tallies of 22, 30 and 26 possessions. I think what's really raised the floor and consistency is that tackle count. 7, 8 and 12 in the last 3 for an average of 9 a game. That is huge for Huey, and I love seeing that defensive pressure, and it's probably not something we've usually associated with him as a player in the past. And with this nice run continuing, he could be a massive pod. Consistency has been the issue, but I think he's now finding other ways to raise that floor. Saligo, another one who is killing it, right up there with some of the best in the comp. He's that third string mid, averaging 60% CBAs, and again, the common theme is that he doesn't get tagged, yet to go below 100 with 114, pair of 108s and a 126 against the Suns, averaging around 28 touches and a tick over 5 tackles per game. His stat sheet's actually really consistent. His impact on the scoreboard, number of score involvements, 4 goals to his name, Similar to Ashy, you are purchasing as a keeper, and you need to have high confidence levels this type of scoring continues. It's a lone wolf move, but it could pay off, or you could regret it later on. Georgia Hewitt, another pod flying under the radar. Don't worry about Walsh, Cripps, Chera. Georgie boy has been the highest averaging midfielder out of the lot. How's this for a consistent 3 rounds of scoring? 123, 126, and 125. A 3-point range in 3 weeks of scoring. Unbelievable. And I'd be more than happy to lock that in every week. He's the second highest CBA mid behind Cripper, and bringing the heat defensively as well, finding the peel himself. Tackle count 8, 11, 9, 6. Again, gives him a lovely floor and that solid base to work from. Has a nice 3-round fixture for mids. And I don't see why he can't continue pushing out 120s for the next few weeks. It's another pod move, but the role is extremely solid and it could be a sneaky play. Newcomb stocks, well, they've slightly risen after the news of Day's injury, but the half-empty glass may suggest that he'll receive even more attention now with Day out of the side, but he's that big body, is harder to tag, but it could negatively affect him. If you think it doesn't, then could be a pod option, but not for me though. Andy B, he's my best buy of the week in the 500k plus range. For many, it's Bray versus, say, a Sarong. Not have Bray in front. He's already copped an early tag, but from then on, the major opposition attention has been focused on Sarong. Played a blinder in his milestone game last week. 29 touches, almost half contested. 9 tackles, 4 goal assists, a goal himself. You really couldn't have asked for more. And the week before that, 29 touches, 7 tackles, 6 clearances, 11 score involvements, and missed 2 relatively easy shots at goal. So 2 130 plus scores on the trot. That's caught the attention of non-owners, and many are keen to bringing him in. And I advocate the trade in, and I think you can even cap the captaincy on him on debut. Took is a very outside chance of DPP, but let's hope for a miracle. Playing really well and impacting when spending time forward as well. One to watch, a 121 3-rounder is good. Now I've got Sarong, Dawson and Merritt all as buy nows. Sarong, he'll cop a tag from time to time, but can also break them on occasions. When not tagged, he should fill up the stat sheet with those bulk contested possessions and tackles. Has a decent run, really nice buy, and could go bananas as captain against Richmond this week. After, below par scores of 102.99, 105 to start the season, finally went bang with a 142 against the Doggies, and we could expect similar things in his next 2 against the Tigers and the D's. So, a player I would like to own. One concern in the Eagles game was that he racked up 35 touches for only the 105, so I'd like to see him convert more disposals to points and clean up that efficiency. Dawson, again a fine pick, break even, he's just in the green, seems a rock solid, super safe option, can play anywhere on the ground and dominate, can shake a tag through that versatility and size, takes a nice contested grab, great leader of the side, the main CBA mid with 72% CBAs, and still I think at a reasonable price. We haven't seen the ceiling yet with 2 scores of 124, but we definitely know it's there. And Zeret is the last buy now for me, and if the D's decide not to tag him this week, he could go massive. Has such a nice run coming up, possesses a history of those premium numbers for years. The only issue I have is that if the opposition look to tag, I'm 99% certain that Merritt will be the target. Like, who else are you going to tag in the midfield? The only possibility I can think of is Nick Martin if he gets off the chain, but he's been playing up forward at times anyway. Zeret plays Melbourne, West Coast, Collingwood and North before facing off most likely against James Jordan at Marvel. So a lovely month before what will most likely be a bit of a tough game. Has had 1 ceiling score in round 2 with that 145 against Adelaide, but only an 89 and a 106 to add to that. We know he's got some huge games in him, and I think they may be coming up very soon. I'd be a very happy owner at this point, knowing that next month could be looking pretty cruisy, but buyer beware of the random tag. And I better just say, I have a lot of people ask me, like, who should I trade in out of player ABC? For example, your Zeret, your Dunkley, your Brayshaw. Now, that's completely up to you and something I can't really answer for you. All I can do is try to provide you with as much info as possible, give you my opinion about each player. But remember, I'm far from an expert. I just do my best to give my opinion, go through the numbers as I said. Now, with these 3 as an example, I think they're all great buy now options, as you can see from the symbols, and hard to see any pick going too wrong. But, all right, for what it's worth, Brayshaw's probably the man for me. You got me. On to the next slide, and Tom Green somehow avoiding the tags. They're going to Finn, so he'd be loving life. A bit of a pot option, but if you think he continues to play with freedom, you could jump on. Traditionally more of a fantasy pick, but could be a good Supercoach option. Just one to watch. Matty Rao will most likely scare off most people after last week's performance, especially those that traded him in last year for top price. They'd still be having nightmares. To be honest, it's probably enough for me to pass for now. I'd probably take a punt on the Noah Coaster instead, but they both have identical 3-round averages, so pick one if you like. Now, King Nick, he was tagged by Hewitt as expected and had an extremely quiet first half. Could have kicked a big goal, first one of the game, get the crowd going, but missed. And we were waiting for a big response in the second half, and let it be known, halfway through the third, he doubled his score, had a big third quarter. I did see him talking to the physios about his knee about halfway through the fourth. Did look a little bit sore. He came back on, but all he really did was give a handball to Zach Williams, a free kick away for a high tackle to Hewitt, which resulted in a goal against. But a 17 disposal second half, got him to a 90 plus, so no complete train wreck. His break even sits at 130, but faces a James Jordan tag. So close your eyes, owners, but non-owners, prepare for a discounted day cost in a couple of weeks' time. I'm definitely looking to trade him in. Chadley Warner isn't really a relevant midfield selection, but with potential forward DPP, his relevance could go bang. Let's just wait and see what happens after this week and then assess our forward structure. If he gets a nod, I think it'll be very close. Dunks, he's that safe as houses premium midfield pick where you really can't go wrong. Won't cop the tag. Should play really well against his old side this week. Chocky played a ripper against the Tigers, and the tag didn't really eventuate here as I expected. Had much more freedom, went along on his merry way to a nice 130. This is what we want to see. I'm backing him in to punch out another big one against the Dogs in his home state this week. Has good history against them. I assume they won't look to tag, potentially Kennedy, but it'd be pretty unlucky. It does face the Saints in a couple of weeks after that, which will hurt. So if you're looking to buy, do be prepared for that. LDU did cop that Jordan tag last week over the Shees and actually battled through it pretty well, to be fair. Similar to last year, at this stage, I think you just hold on to him as an owner. Keep him on your potential target list as a fallen premium if you don't have him in your squad. Remember, I mentioned this a lot. Janath held him last year and was well rewarded in the end. And Connor Ozee, this just hasn't worked out. Another really quiet game last week and now leaking cash. With Butters back, the horny man firing, I can actually see him coming back to form without copying as much opposition attention, but his keeper status is really questionable, and I can see why people would want to move him on. A yin-yang start to the season with two brilliant scores, 128 and 130, but then down to the dungeons with that 64 and 76 last week. Plays Hawthorn and Sydney, who will most likely tag, and if you're holding, you just pray they go to Butters as they should. An awkward situation to find yourself in, and I'd be happy to move him on if you need to, but be prepared for him to hit back at some stage. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Oh man, Murphy Reid, he was a big miss. Janice jumped on him, of course he did, but none of the other swordplay crew did. One that has already got away, I think. The ship has sailed. I'm depressed reading his scores and stats, so well done to those who started him or have traded him in. A 3-rounder of 85 is super impressive, and his job security is as rock solid as it gets. Samuel O'Law had a fantastic outing against my boys, reset his cash gen, which is really handy, will receive DPP at the end of the round, 112 points from 24 touches, 4 tackles, and a couple of snags. Also had 4 free kicks, 4, which was handy. I can see why he was taken at number 1, but still better options with better roles to choose from. The Petey's on fire, now showing why many of us had him in our teams during the pre-season. If Rankin is out, this is great for him. If Crouch remains out of the side, this is also very good news. However, with both players back in that midfield, I think it does limit Pete's ceiling. Will be a very keen watch this week, but you really want to go now if you are keen to take the punt before his price rise. Josh Ward is a pod averaging 92, and with Will Day now missing a large chunk of football, he could potentially be a player that benefits. A very awkward price, and you want to be really confident on the pick, and I'll just be completely honest, I just don't have a good read on him. I've got no idea how Levi Ashcroft snuck his way into this price range, but we'll talk about him quickly on the next one. In shattering news, Noddy, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks, so it looks like a must trade. We can't bench him for that long unless you're in an amazing position, so time to thank him for his short yet wonderful service and go down to a Hall type or possibly up to a Primo. Adam Chera. Again, watched him like a hawk. Had a fantastic start to the game, 13 touches for 63 points. Now, as an owner at half time, it's sort of comforting to know that all he needs to do is punch out a 37-point second half to get to 100. It's a really nice base to work from. Looks super dangerous. Toggle's looking good. He's running down the lines really well. Just the way he does run those middle lines, it's super impressive to me. And he puts himself in good positions to receive the ball when he's not winning it himself. So, really rate this bloke. But he just seems to peter out. And as Collingwood started to control the game in the third, he just went quiet. Only added 3 points in half a quarter. And then you get paranoid again. He ended on 80 at the end of the quarter, so okayish. But as I just said earlier, the Tog was good. But thanks very much, Vossi. He sits this man on the bench for the first, 9 minutes of the third. It makes you pull your hair out. At halftime, everything is rosy, then it just turns to poo. So literally losing points sitting on the bench. There was like 12 minutes 35 on the clock when he made his first appearance in the fourth. It's beyond ridiculous, but in good news, he did start jacking up, seagulling around half back when he came on, finished the game on 99 points, close to his exact score last week, only 35-point half in yet another Carlton fade out. So he looks like that 95 to 105 type midfielder, but that'll do me for now. Clary, he's been a little bit down, but still fine the ball. We all own him. I think a big score's just around the corner, so still a firm hold for me. The shattering news continues on the injury front, and this time it's Will Day. We did flag the durability concerns pre-season, and owners' worst fears have been realised. Gone for an extended period of time, a must-trade out. Now officially a pick that we can mark down as a failure. Even more frustrating if you held him through the bye, waiting for those friendly fixtures. So, yeah, super unlucky if you're a Will Day owner. Track just looks disinterested, spending a lot of time playing forward, now sitting in the 250 to 500k price range. Things are looking downhill. However, in a turn of events that may even save this pick, he's basically locked in for 4 DPP status. A bit of a game changer, so we wait for next week just to confirm and plan to bring him in when we see some solid form, because at the moment, even with DPP status, doesn't look overly tempting. In saying that, surely he's too good to continue to drop sub-hundreds. And Finn, just get in the bin. What a trap this was, and I blame the Pies for letting him run right and showing the rest of the comp how dangerous he was. Now a tag target, looking like a failed pick. The huge concern, particularly now that we're back to best 22, is if he cops the windy tag this week. If he does, he's cooked. He'll leak cash like no tomorrow. If the tag doesn't come his way, then he could save himself with a good performance, but the risk of a tag is very high, scares living daylights out of me, so I'm getting out this week and I'm upgrading to an Uber. I could have egg on my face if he gets back to his best without taggers weighing him down, but scores of 55 and 72 just don't cut the mustard, and I was thinking he can even be a smoky VC option last week against the Eagles, but given the fact he couldn't even punch out an 80 against that type of opposition, that's a red flag for me. So it's been a terrible relationship, and why on earth didn't I go with my boy Ashy? On to the midfielders under 250k, and at the top of the list this week, we have Clay Hall, a nice 2-round average of 78, and after a couple of solid performances, he looks like a pretty decent option. His job security just went up with the news that Tim Kelly will be omitted from the Eagles side. This makes me a lot more comfortable with the pick now. With a modest score of 60, he'll rise close to 60k. That's some nice rapid cash, and we've already seen him punch out an 88 in his first game of the year. The red flag here is that after that opening performance, he actually got dropped, so that's a concern, something we do need to take into consideration when buying. But out of all the players on this list, I have him as the best bubble buy this week. Not a must-have, but it'll certainly be a popular trade-in option. Campo looks pretty dead. Wait for team sheets, but I don't hold out strong hope. From memory, his brother outperformed him in the Rezzies last week. Moraes looked nothing like he did the week before, and that's something I flagged last week, particularly with Wingman. It's funny, seeing him named on the field when the teams first came out gave me really good confidence, but when the final teams were submitted, he found himself on the bench. But all good, didn't get subbed off. He'll continue to make money. Really won a 70 plus this week. The good to bad symbol, that's probably a bit harsh. So it was far from a train wreck. I'm still pretty happy with the pick. Elijah Sardis, he's a big talking point with Caldwell out and should be fit to take his place after that minor injury. His points per minute, fantastic. But it's the lack of minutes he receives on the ground that's that major concern. Scobes is a massive fan. Huge advocate of trading him in. I like his scoring power and ability as long as he gets enough time to shine. Parrish is back soon, so do they just give Parrish Caldwell's minutes and Starter stays at that same low level? I hope not for those that own and are trading him in, because if he gets an opportunity, then this should work out really well. Surely Brad Scott gives him the chance, increases his clock. I do have him as a buy now, but that Tog is certainly a caution. A bit of buyer beware, but geez, I can see him scoring well if given that opportunity. Harvey Langford, tough, talented player, but cheaper options and better options at the moment. So if you're an owner a hold, same as the next two in Hanley and Draper. At least good to see Draper get a full game. Now Levi, this is the right slide for him. Great to see him on the weekend. Played really well against the Tigers through his 87. Hit the scoreboard, which was nice. Think it was 1-2 from memory. Usually starts on the bench like his brother, then goes that forward flank. A lock for DPP status as well, so that will come in very handy. Lindsay, I hope that he's back. I think that he will be, or at least extremely close. If it's not this week, definitely be the next week. Fingers crossed he isn't the sub. If you held through last week, you absolutely hold again. Hendo, he's only given us 30s and 40s at the moment, so not good enough to have on field. Here's a hold for now I've selected, because forward DPP is incoming. Oh, and I'm so frustrated with this one. You can never trust anyone out of Geelong. All of a sudden, Everett's back after I trade him out. Syndesmosis, whatever. If he's a sub, then you lose for now. But if he plays a full game, you could really end up punishing those like myself that trade him out. At least I'm out of the Geelong pick. Chris Scott, cannot stand him. And as a bit of a bonus, you'll know nice and early if he's a sub or not. And Foss is a sell for mine. Didn't play this week. Isn't scoring enough to warrant a spot on field. Just a 200k odd bench player that provides no value. On to the big boys in the ruck, and isn't this a depressing read? At the top of the list, we do have a read with Archer, 179,000 with a break-even of -40. May go up close to 40k this week if he hits a 50, but I don't think there's any reason to go there now, and the ship has sailed. The man under him, though, you can see the symbol there. If you've got a bit of an empty wallet, Big Kizza could be a bit of a bargain buy in the rucks this week. After an injury-affected 9, he hit back in rounds 3 and 4 with scores of 99 and 107. That 107 was against West Coast, so you do want a little bit more than that. But if he can get back to his 2023 form, then this could be a great deal. But last year he did regress, lost some of his ceiling. But if you are a desperate Flynn R2 owner and you're looking for a solution, then Big Kizza may be that solution just for now. But I don't see him finishing as a top-line ruck. TDK. He was my VC for the week, and I watched him like an absolute hawk. Had a really solid start to the game with a 36-point first quarter. And we were worried when he had that kick smothered, ran straight off the ground. Looked a little bit sore, but came back on. All good. Loves to take a ball out of this ruck, this fella as well, which is always good for a contested possession. He did finish the first half on 63, which was fine in the wet. Struggled in the second half, though. Gave away a free. All of a sudden, my VC was down to 57 points a few minutes into the third quarter. The Pies had actually won 6 clearances in a row by this point. Then halfway through the quarter, he'd actually lost points on his total from half-time. Spent 8 minutes on the bench, bloody Vossi. I was just waiting for him to go bang. But then it gets down to literally 5 minutes left in the third. He still had a negative quarter. Then, I reckon there was about 2.5 minutes to go. He finally notches up his first disposal after a nice contested intercept mark. Thank goodness for that little late bonus. He then gets 2 hit-outs, but then they're sharked. That really hurts. And then pushing back in the free in a ruck contest, gets another disposal and an inside 50. I'll stop there because I was literally writing every possession. I've got a whole page on notes just on TDK. I've even got here another late possession, so saved it a bit, moved up to 71. Look, it was far from ideal though. Didn't do much in the last. Should have been paid a contested mark and could have had another shot for goal, but not to be. I'm not going to try to complain too much, but rumours are circulating that Pito could come in this week. I don't think that'll be the case. Fingers crossed anyway, because this could be a mini disaster. The Nank, 543,400, coming up against Fremantle this week. And if Dogger's out, well, we know that Dogger's out, but if Shrek doesn't get up for this game, then this man could absolutely feast, and I may even have him in consideration for the VC or the captain. So wait for team sheets there. Darcy Cameron, the 3-rounder doesn't look too fantastic, but I actually think he got the best of TDK on the weekend. He only got a score in the 90s, so nothing to write home about, but could be a pod if you're looking for someone different. There's no great options here at the moment. Maxi Gawn hit back slightly, but you can see in the notes section, I'm a little bit worried about the GOAT. I expected him to really bounce back, like a 140 plus, 150 type score. A score in the 120s is all good, but it seems like he has lost a little bit of his ceiling. Jared Witts with the best 3-round average you can see here, 118, but does have a break even in the red with a 141. But you know what? He could be almost that safe as houses type ruckman that can just lock in for a decent score every week. And then Tristan Sherry, my man down the bottom. Oh man, this is just so super unlucky. He doesn't look right, and it seems like, well, for the last couple of weeks anyway, he spent the last 7 to 10 minutes sitting on the pine. So I don't think he's 100%. Not many players are when you get even a month into the season, but I do have some concerns. He's going to leak a heap of cash. If you are a non-owner, you've been a little bit kissed here. You wait a couple of weeks, make sure he's fit and healthy, and then get him right into your side. Onto the forwards, 500k plus, and at the top of the list, Mr. Generational himself, Sam Darcy, is an absolute freak of the highest order. Not a single defender in the comp that can confidently match up on him, and he's impacting the scoreboard every week. My current tip to win the Coleman, so I'll be hunting for a dogs predictor in my AFL select packs, averaging 3 goals and 4 contested marks per game, which is number 1 in the comp, as well as close to 9 score involvements as well. So much to like, and look, maybe it's time to actually look past his key position status and seriously consider him. Apart from his 76 in round 1, he's gone bang with a 117, 125, and a 141. The scary thing is, the scoring trend is only going up. Dogger, well, he's out for a few weeks, so really unfortunate for owners. Shrek may be back this week, so his time in the ruck may have become much more limited anyway, but a blow nonetheless. He'll be tough to hold at that price and for a few weeks, so I think you may just need to move him on, even with that low break even, which is super frustrating. Jack McRae is must-have. Everybody owns him anyway, so no discussion needed there. And Isaac Rankin had such an unlucky week, ripped off the chance to kick the winning goal, and just to add injury to the insult, he copped a knee to the calf. So it may be a game time decision, but for now, he's been named. Onto the forwards, 250 to 500k, and I will go through this one pretty quickly because I do want to keep the stocky to under 45 minutes if possible this week because it will be out a little bit later. But the man up the top, Sam Davidson, absolutely doing his job for us. Came back down to earth a little bit last week, but still making some fantastic coin. By the end of this week, he'll have made us over 150k, but then the break-even will start to rise a little bit, but we have welcomed him to the 250 to 500k plus range this week, which means he is doing absolutely magnificently. So Sammy Davidson, well done to you, son. The next two blokes, there was a lot of discussion about these two last week. For lots of people, a choice between the two. Some people faded both. Other people jumped on the pair as well. But after 1 week, Marriage looks like the more successful pick for now. But keep in mind that Humpty has a really nice couple of weeks coming up in regards to fixture. He actually did look really dangerous at the start of the game without getting a touch. He was ignored when he was by himself in the 50 a couple of times, but his positioning was great. But unfortunately, halfway through the first, only had a single tackles to his name, and then the bad news pretty much continued from there. Just couldn't get involved, and this could have been a disaster if he didn't kick that goal. 64 points from 13 touches, 4 tackles, a mark, and that single goal. But this is when the juicy fixture comes into play, so not all doom and gloom given the fact he faces North and Richmond in the next two. North aren't as easier as a matchup as maybe what they have been in the past, but if you go sub 80, it will be a slight train wreck, but hopefully it goes well for those that did take the punt. Now, Ryan Marriage, just up top, he scored an 88, did slip in the last quarter, but the role was certainly there, and everything is A-okay with this pick for now. Still with a break-even in the negatives, a negative 19 there. I've had a few questions about, is it too late to bring him in? Probably for me. I think the ship has sailed. This is absolutely the last week, but you'll need to have a lot of confidence in that role and a lot of confidence that he can go somewhere between 90 to 100 for this to be a successful pick for you. So, unfortunate if you didn't jump on last week, but I suppose there's a world where you could. Parker is 380k now, looking to make around 25k if he can go around an 85. Didn't have a great start to the season, but a real banger last week with 120 plus. That is what we want as owners. When I say we, I'm not included here. Getting a little bit older, but they want that experience in there. Does he get affected by Wardlaw? Not too sure about that, but you could look to go there. A real pod pick, just not for me though. Thilthorpe, another major pod pick. Like a Sam Darcy, just really didn't see this one coming. The old Wiz did, so shout out to you, mate. I always lose it towards the end of the videos here and start to slur my words, as I have, I think, during this video, because it is currently, what are we? Yeah, 3:36 a.m. in the morning. So we will get through this one. We're going to get through it. But Thilthorpe, massive pod selection. If he goes around the 100 mark, we'll add another 25k to his price point. Did go there. I still couldn't. But if you want to, look at that 3-round average. It's the second best on this list with a 107, so respect needs to be given. Sanders with a 75 3-rounder. Yeah, not as bad as what we were initially thinking potentially with this pick, but as an owner, you just hold. We don't look to buy. Horn Francis, I don't even want to talk about him. You can see the horny man is on fire all of a sudden. Looks like a different man, a different beast. Seller's regret for some of us, but for those like myself that did manage to split him into the Baz and Marek combination, I still think it's going to be a bit of a win for us, but super frustrating when he averages bugger all for us. We trade him out and all of a sudden he's averaging 150 when he's out of our sides. Dang. Baz is a must-have. I think we've all got him by now. If you're still looking to jump on, there is potential that you could, because I think he's that must-have pick in our forward lines. And last one here, Charlie Curnow. Look at that break-even in the red, if you don't mind, at 128, but you can see in the symbol section there, he's been poo. There's toilet paper, but the flame symbol is for potential just for this week. I think he could go nuts and we could see a 140 score. After that, I'll lose all confidence again, but if you're after a pod captaincy play, maybe if you got him in draft, for example, then I think he could be an absolute ripper. But from what we've seen this season, wowee, just hasn't looked near it. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Up the top, we have Isaiah Dudley. He's probably the main option this week if you're looking to trade in forward rookie. Bargain basement price and a few injuries to Freo players may allow him to end up being a successful pick in the short term. At 99k, you're saving dollars, and he does have an average of 64, which is more than okay for the price. His role isn't ideal, however, and when other players return, may struggle to hold his spot. If you need a cheap forward rookie, here's one to get without a doubt, but far from a must-have, and he can pass without stress. We'll turbo through the rest as there isn't a heap of relevance. Erasmus was omitted last week after a pretty solid performance, but this was always a worry, and he may sit in the bubble for a while until there's a spot that opens up through injury. Hall is a hold. Looks like he'll make his 150k, be a successful rookie. Well done. Closey's been Chris Scotted, omitted from the side. We flagged it last week that job security could be a concern, and unfortunately for those that went there, it did come to fruition. Super frustrating. Hewitt, he's injured and not 100% sure about the timeline here. One he could trade or potentially hold as a loop until he comes back. Kako, great job security. Could have a decent score against the struggling Ds this week. I'm actually considering fielding him, so hope he goes well. And again, an easy hold for now. SPP played a decent game last week, and another player I'm happy to hold. Still has some coin to make. And Connor Stone is such a slow burn. He may crawl to 100k profit, but it's looking like a mission at the moment. In positive news, he will receive defensive DPP next week, which will come in handy for swings if you hold. But all we need is just one spike score, and he'll get his cash gen going again. Does that spike score look likely? Absolutely not for now. So that's it for this week, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye.